Hello, Steve Stuffletto here from Erie Community College in Buffalo, New York. This video demonstration is going to talk about a project that we do in the Lithopress 2 lab. Here's the project. It's a two-color job, and I call it the brown buffalo bison job. It's a one color black with the second color being a Pantone brown, so that would be called a spot color. Now, by definition, I would not call this a duotone, even though it's two colors. But duotone typically means that it's two half tones combined. None of these are half tones. The brown is all solid spot color, and the black is all solid line art. Now, we have several versions of this buffalo. Notice the hooves here. They're solid black, 100% black, so everything here is line art. We have another version where we made the hooves white. I don't think that looks logical, right? And then we had another version here where the hooves were screened with a tint, so that was a second burn or a second exposure on the plate, but they were a little too light. I think that was maybe a 10 or a 20% screen tint. Now we have two versions here. I don't know if you can see this. They both have hooves that are screen tints, but the mix on this Pantone brown is on the yellow shade, and the mix on this Pantone brown is on the red shade. So we also have another version here where the hooves are darker now. I think that's a 50% screen tint, all right? And then we have another version here where the hooves are black. So one of the things I see immediately here is that we must have been giving instructions to the class, to the students, to mix any Pantone color they want, because of the 6 I see here, there's different shades. This is a yellow shade, this is a red shade, this is slightly on the red shade, this is on the red shade, this is a yellow shade. So not only do we have different hues, so I don't know if that's because we chose different Pantone colors as a target aim, or if they mix the inks incorrectly, used the wrong base colors or used the wrong proportions. And then another thing we can do, but I'll probably do this at a later time, is that I randomly sampled the production run. So we had, I don't know, maybe, looks like there's about 52 total copies here of the random sampling. And let me just put these to the side here for a second. So here is a press run. We pulled random samples, they're numbered. And then if we take a look at number 52 here and compare it to number 16, you can see that 52 is lighter than 16 is. Now that difference there, you could actually measure it with a densitometer, but densitometers aren't very accurate for measuring color, so you'd probably want to use a colorimeter or a spectrophotometer, and we could calculate the delta E, the total color difference. Then if I take another sample and I use this one as a reference, we can see that this one is darker. So compared to the reference, this one is darker. Compared to the reference, this one's lighter. But when I put these two next to each other, it's obvious that we have extreme color variation here. So we'll talk more about this later, but you have to be careful. Even though you might be visually acceptable in one direction, lighter, or visually acceptable in another direction, darker, it's when you put the two together that you see the extreme color variation. Okay, so now we know what we're doing. We're going to print a two-color project. So I have some Pantone books here, and the first point I want to make is the front cover is typically an ink company. This is INX, this is Braden Sullivan, it could be Wyckoff Ink, many different ink companies. I don't want you to think that INX or Braden Sullivan makes their own Pantone book. What happens is they pay a licensing fee to Pantone to put their name on the front cover of the book. Now, this is a 1979 edition, 9th printing, and this is a 1999 edition, 14th printing. Back then, the book, a single fan guide book, was large. It had half the book coated paper, the other half of the book uncoated paper. Since then, X-Rite has purchased Pantone, and now the Pantone books are separated. There's a separate book for uncoated paper and a separate book for coated paper. And here I'm using the Plus Series guide, and the edition on this book is 2010. You can see a copyright date here of 2010. So in the Pantone system, there's 14 base colors. The first 2 pages are your base colors. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So from these 14 basic base colors, you can mix any color in the system. Now, every year they publish new colors, so that makes the books obsolete very quickly if you want to stay current with them. The other thing we should probably mention is newer colors have to have new numbers. So in the old days, the Pantone number was just a 3-digit number. In this case, 392. The U means uncoated. If it was a C, it would mean coated. But now what we have is we have 4-digit numbers because they've added new colors, right? So if you see a 4-digit number, you know it's a newer color. If you see a 3-digit color, you know it's an older color. The other thing they did was they made the books in hue order, which is a little confusing. So now if you want to find a color, you have to go to the back of the book, go to the index and find the page for that, right? So the index tells you the color and the page. So I think what we want to do here is print to Pantone 7516. So let's find 7516. Pantone 7516 is right here. That's on page 173. So the pages are numbered at the bottom left. Let's go to page 173. Here we are, page 173. Pantone 7516. I think that's a good candidate for our brown color here. Okay, so Pantone 7516U uncoated has 4 ingredients in its recipe or its formula. It has a yellow, a warm red, a black, and a transparent. So the yellow and the warm red are going to change the hue. The black will just make the color darker and dirtier, and the transparent white will just extend the ink to make it not as strong. If you didn't put the transparent ink in there, this would be so strong you would have to run a very thin ink film thickness, and that would be problematic on press. So now the other thing about transparent white, it's kind of like an oxymoron. There is no color to it, so it's not white. It certainly is an opaque white. is transparent white, which really means it's just a clear varnish. So these are your percentages. These percentages should add up to 100 when you're done. All right, so why don't we go ahead and get those colors. So this beige cabinet here stores our Pantone colors. I need a yellow. So this is Braid and Suffin. They're out of Cleveland, Ohio, but they just last year, well, in 2018, they were purchased by Wyckoff, which is very large, based out of Chicago. And this is a Pantone yellow ink. The Unseen is a series of ink called New Century, and it's for a sheet fed press. Now it looks like there's a date on here. This ink was manufactured on 6/17, and this is a 1 pound metal can of ink. Now I don't like opening up new cans, so here's a larger can, still PMS, Pantone Matching System, yellow, New Century ink series, manufactured in '02. So ink, like paint, can last many years when the lid is on. So at least 3, 4, 5 years. Some of these inks are very old. Soy means that it has a soil-based vegetable oil as compared to a hydrocarbon petroleum distillate oil. So a lot of people like to be user-friendly, not user